Good morning, everybody. About 8:30, September 1st. Can you believe it's already September? Back over here to get some work done. First thing I'm going to do, much like this patch here that I did, I've got a similar spot here. Doesn't look as bad. I think I pointed this out in the last video. But I'm going to do approximately the same investigation. Cut a notch here, and bend that top flange back and see what's under there and see if I have to replace some metal. If I do, I don't expect it to be as bad. And otherwise, outside of that, I'm going to continue on some of this dent work and then go ahead and continue with the cleaning so I can eventually get to the point where I'm ready to paint the inside of this in epoxy. So you can see that little piece of cancer there, that little nick out of it, right about in here. So I'm going to cut out a strip of this, and not the whole thing, but just maybe along its length or so, and then weld a new piece in, bend that thing back over, and weld it back up. Changed my mind here. I looked underneath, there's very little rust underneath. Cleaned it up with a wire brush, it came clean pretty well. I'm using the POR 15 rust converter stuff. And instead of replacing any metal, I'm just going to treat it and then prime it and then fold it back over and weld it up. I don't believe that it's really worth replacing that little piece when I've gotten all the rust out of it anyway. So continuing with that, I've also shot the PR15 on the little rust spots that I've got here and going to continue cleaning. And I also have the tubes, the support tubes here that you can see. Got those to do. They're a mess. I'll start cleaning them up and get all nasty and grimy with those things as well. And the ton of brackets. All these guys right here, the ton of brackets that came with all that stuff. Here's that POR 15 metal prep that I'm using. I think I've showed you that before when I was working on the frame. Got this area painted, weld through primer. Take a hammer and dolly and I'll knock this back over and get it welded back up. Alright, done. There's all the clamps for the positioning tubes and the strengthening tubes and all that stuff. I haven't cleaned them up yet, but these I did get cleaned up. You can kind of see what they used to look like by looking at the bolts. Unfortunately, my bench grinder gave up the ghost, so I got to go get a new one of them to clean bolts up. But stuck them in the sandblaster for a little bit too, just to get like up in these little crannies in here around this captive nut. And got them all cleaned up, so now I'm going to get going with the tubes. So this is the cross member tube here, and you can see how much gunk is on that thing, all thick and nasty just from it coming off the motor, but shouldn't be too hard to clean up. It's just a tube after all. This will be a little tricky to get in those little nooks and crannies there, but you can really see, I think, how thick that stuff is on there. So take a couple minutes here and clean this up, and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so that one's pretty much done. Not trying to get off all the paint off of there. Don't see a reason to. I will hit it with 60 grit sandpaper and just run the sandpaper over it before I get the epoxy primer on it. But now I'm going to move on to the other tubes. So this is one of the placement rods. This is the end where the bushing goes in here, and this is where the bonnet bolts to the front of the chassis, the front of the frame, and it pivots over that so you can lift it up and everything like that. So if you can kind of see here, this is the main tube, and then it gets flattened right here to make this piece, and then this little piece here gets welded on, and that's what gives the bushing some strength. Well, if you can see, there's a big crack in that tube metal there. Kind of interesting, not a place, because this would go vertically, so not a place where I would necessarily expect rust to occur. But the welds around this bushing are not that great, so who knows, maybe some water got in there, or maybe this thing did start to crack and just over the years eventually rusted out and everything. So I'm not going to waste my time cleaning this one up. This is relatively structural. I probably could repair it, but it is a hollow piece of tube, and I'm not too sure how far in it's going to go or how thick it is. It's pretty significant gauge, something thicker than I probably have hanging around. Anyway, discretion is the better part of valor here, so I'm just going to take this piece from the black car's bonnet. Pretty sure I have them, so I'm not going to waste my time cleaning this up right now if I'm not going to use it. Worked on some of the dents in the front. Came out actually not too bad. The areas here, this front balance piece here looks like it got beat up pretty good over time, as you would suspect, being low in the car and everything. And the overriders, the bumper overriders go right here. This is where the tubes come out for the strengthening tubes. You can kind of see the marks here and here as it goes and finds its way up on top of the wheel arches. So essentially that's done. The welding is done. Doesn't appear that there's any other spots that are going to require weld repair. The dent in this corner here above the front lights, the parking lights or whatever they're called properly, the signal lights. I can't get to that, I don't have a hammer, I think I've mentioned that. So now I'm just going to start going to town and cleaning, getting everything prepped for epoxy. Lots of little nooks and crannies in here and everything to make it a little bit painful, but you know, it is what it is. So that's the path. Probably for the rest of the day. Actually, it's about noon, so a little tedious, but we got to do it. So it's about 2:20 and I've grown a little tired of cleaning, so I'm going to start working on some of the dents that I still have to work. You can see that little mark right here, that's dented in. There's some various pock marks and stuff in here, and I'm going to continue to work on the bonnet underneath here, I think, as well. Otherwise though, it's not too bad. I can't reach this. I've already said that about 12 times. There's not too many other dings or dents on this thing, so I'm going to concentrate on those for my my last hour or so that I'm here. So this is the dent right here I'm going to start with. Got a couple different hammers. Got a couple different hammers and dollies to choose from. This guy right here, whoop, get it in the camera shot. This guy right here, nice flat face, pick on the end. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pick this out from the back here, and just using that, just tapping that on the back of the hammer. The other kind of problem here is you can see that depression in there, so I think what that's done is kind of provided some strength, added strength to this metal. And I've also have a rolled corner here, so I can't hit flat, because if I hit that rolled corner it's going to mess it all up. So alright, starting to come out a little bit. If you can see, it probably can't too well, but I've essentially flattened out this end. Go up top here. Now I am doing off dolly, so I've got the dolly in here at an angle. It's not sitting right on the dent, but it's off here on an angle, and I'm tilting it away a little bit. Like I said, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, so I don't know if that's how you're supposed to do it, but it seems to be working. Alright, most of that's out, just a little spot right at the top there. Yep, went too high that time, so now I've knocked it out. And I got a high spot here because I hit it too much, and a low spot here. Alright, that feels pretty good. Gonna go in and try to knock that high spot in a little bit. Might be able to tell that I'm not really hitting that hard. Just you don't need to. Alright, that feels pretty good to me. It's rough because of the paint, so I'm going to take some of that paint off. It's a little counterintuitive, for me anyway, when I first started, is you don't want the dolly behind the metal necessarily. There's an off dolly and an on dolly thing, and the idea is if you smack the hammer on the dolly with the metal, you're going to stretch that metal ever so slightly. Well, that metal's going to go somewhere. It's got to displace the fact that it's getting a little thinner, so it's going to buckle or it's going to bend or something. That metal's going to move. So if you don't want that to happen, you knock off dolly so that you bend the metal instead of flattening it, for lack of a better way to put it. So it took a little bit for me to get used to that, and I'm still getting used to it. But alright, so now that the metal's not rough, won't mess up my feeling. I got a little pock mark right there. Not too bad. Feels like it's low and then immediately high. Nice little square face. I would prefer around here, but this is a round shrinking one, which everything that I've read or seen or anything that this is supposed to grab and shrink the metal, it's a bunch of crap. It doesn't work. Not for hammers anyway. But I'm trying to get a smaller contact point, so the square is not really what's important. The square is to try to get on an edge or something like that. I'm just trying to get the smaller contact face. Alright, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I still have that little still have that little raised spot and the little low spot but I'm not going to mess with them anymore. I'm pretty happy with those. Same kind of thing on the other side. I'm going to move over here. All right, again, same spot right in here. So just, I guess, history a little bit. Pull out one of these tubes here. I'll show you. At least I hope I'll show you. So this, I'm going to put the alignment tube in here. So that's kind of what it looks like. And like I said, this is where it gets the bushing to make the bonnet go up and down. So if this moves up or down, that's where you have some contact. And the other thing is that the fender overrider comes on top of this, and then all of the hardware and attachment points for the thing, the bonnet, and I think this just beats up that area generally over time. So that's why we've got similar damage. Try to use some sandpaper here to see the highs and lows. You can see it now. The shinier spots will be the highs, and the darker spots would be the lows. Problem with doing it by hand, however, is it's not perfectly flat. So that'll tend to skew that a little bit, but I think it's going to be good enough, and it feels right as far as, you know, feel by my hand. So at least that gives me an idea now where I'm at and what I'm looking at for what has to come up and what has to come down. There's also a little bit of a ding in the base here. So again, you can see the darker spots are lows. All right, I don't know if you could see that come out. Or not, but there was a pretty good painted spot there. Sanded it down, pretty much blended in with the inside there. So it's coming out. Put the dolly on the high spot to prevent it from popping back out on me. Smacking off dolly from behind. And now see that? I did that too much. Take out this vertical portion here, surrounded by the low spots. Put the dolly on the low spot on the inside, so the edge of the dolly is sitting right here, so bang. Alright, and you can see that took care of that low spot down there. It's gone, or the low spot down there. You can see that I was able to sand that all out. Now this part right in here is going to be a little tricky because it's right on this rolled edge here. So this might be a little painful. I think here I'm going to come and try to bang the high spout out on the back instead of coming from the front. Again, put the dolly right underneath of it and use that as a support. Alright, that feels pretty good. I have a general low spot right there, big enough to probably take the full brunt of the hammer. Yep, got that out. High spot, that's even on camera. High spot going on an angle there, if you can see that. Trying to knock that down. Yep, pretty much was able to knock that down. At least it feels like it. Another little low spot right here. A little low spot right there. I'll bang them from the back. Alright, happy with the way that came out. About 3 o'clock, gonna get out of here. Good amount of work on the bonnet today. A lot of areas cleaned up. Got, yeah, pretty much, areas cleaned up. A little bit of repair work, not too much. Just investigating on this spot over here and got that cleaned up, bent back. Got some dent work done, and then otherwise got the hardware somewhat cleaned up. Those brackets, found that other one that's in bad shape, so I'll go to the black car. I also cleaned the seam sealer out of the wheel arches there. I'll redo it like I did for the underneath of the car, just by, good idea, I think, to get 50-year-old seam sealer out of there. But otherwise, that was about it. Kind of long and time-consuming stuff, but it is what it is, and it's going to look good when it's done. So that's the whole goal here. So I hope everybody has an outstanding weekend. Nice long 3-day weekend, hopefully, for all of you, if not, or at least for most of you, hopefully. It is for me, so I'll be taking advantage with a little cookout on Monday and all that good family time stuff. So otherwise, have a good rest of your weekend. Hope it's a long one, and I will see you guys sometime next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for commenting. And of course, thanks for subscribing. Cheers.